Out of Order Podcast, Episode 10.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thank you for listening to episode 10 of the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Today's podcast is sponsored by Liberty Classroom, where you get the history and economics lessons they didn't teach you in high school. Today's guest is Amanda Suffecool. Amanda is a Pro 2A leader, trainer, and educator. She's created the NRA Carry Guard Concealed Carry Fashion Show. She's also a co-host of the Eyes on Target radio network and founder of Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition. And now, here's Amanda.
Amanda Suffecool, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, Amanda, you started the Realize nonprofit organization. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, my brother, who is kind of my training partner, my radio partner, he warns me now. He's like, stop volunteering. Just stop. And I can't. So what happened was Realize kind of came about because there was in North Ohio, there's a huge lack of just overall firearms knowledge and people that are willing to educate people about firearms in a way to where they can absorb it. We were running into, or we kind of started to see a lot of, if you were a real tech savvy kind of guy or gal, you were getting the firearms knowledge that you wanted or needed, but they were using jargon, they were using terminology, and if you didn't quite know what the cool kids were talking about, you didn't get to know. And we started to look at this and said, really the answer is let's take this in a spot where when somebody has a question, let's answer the question. Let's figure out how to answer the question. And that's really how Realize came about. Its sole purpose is to do education on a whole lot of in the area, and that's what we do.
Okay, great. And so out of that came the radio show. So how did those two
things? The radio show kind of came first, but then it showed the need for Realize. The radio show was when Ohio passed their concealed carry law in 2004. Well, Ohio was one of those states who had bumped up against it. I'm going to pass it. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to pass it. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to pass it. Multiple years of bumping kind of up against that. So the radio show came about because Ohio was one of those states that was getting ready to pass their concealed carry law, and they kind of bumped up against it. Yeah, it's going to pass. No, it didn't. Yeah, it's going to pass. No, it didn't. Multiple years of, yeah, it's going to pass. No, it's not. And when it finally passed, by that time, Rob, who's my sibling, he's my brother, and I had been playing with and looking at the legislation so much that we'd actually gone through 168 pages. And we'd gone through it, and we made side notes, and we made references. And if you've read revised code, state revised code, it's a dry read, and it's always linked. It's like spaghetti that's all strung from one place to another. Well, by the time they found pat as to what, because every time they brought it back out, we were looking for all the changes.
Right. Okay.
Local radio, and well, we tried to buy some advertising, and they were trying to decide whether they wanted to sell advertising or not. And then when they realized what we were doing, they were like, well, there's a lot of questions, so I want us to come on and talk about it. So we did, and they wanted us on for 10, 15 minutes for an interview that turned into 3 hours. Wow. And then they came back and they said, hey, we'd like to give you an hour-long show once a month to talk about guns and concealed carry. Okay. That lasted for about 4 months till they said, we think there's a need to have once a week. And we started it once a month, 5 hours. So that's kind of how that evolved, as crazy as it is. And the format is that people call in and ask questions. So we'll talk anything from what's the best concealed carry gun, and truly the answer is I can't tell you because it's all so personal about you, but here's the decisions you want to start to look at. To let's talk about rifling, to collecting, to, carry, to current legislation or what's coming up or something that's in the news. And we cover all in answering people's questions when they want to know how to. So they ask. So the show itself asks a series of questions, and it's a wide variety, and it can range in a full gamut from anything that's current events to rifling, to ballistics, to concealed carry, to collecting, to what's my gun worth, just all kinds of different things. What's the perfect gun for this person or that person? And so we talk about them all and give our opinion and have listeners give their opinion. It's so much fun to talk about something that you really like and to share the knowledge and to educate people and have them educate you, because I learn as much from the callers as they learn from me.
I'm sure. And with all the technology and podcasting going on, I haven't really heard of a live show where you get that much interaction. So that's got to be a really fun experience, like you said.
It really is, because there is a lot of podcasting. And the thing about it is we looked at it, and it would be easier to be a podcaster. But what happens with the podcasters, there's space for them, there's room for them, but the podcasters are preaching to the choir. People find podcasters because they're looking for podcasters. So we've taken it as our role to be the gateway drug. We're that person that when they're churning their radio dial, they are like, hey, they're talking about guns. And from that, then we can lead them to the Self-Defense Radio Network, and we can lead them to the podcast and more knowledge, more education, more speakers, more people, just by linking them over from one place to another.
Great. Yeah. And have you, since you are the gateway, are you also like the filter for the anti-gunners? Do you get a lot of criticism or complaints calling in, or?
You get some, and what I seem to get more is I get more vitriol emails. So they don't even have, they're not even ugly on the radio, which I prefer that. I mean, I don't want ugly, but they're more ugly behind the keyboard, and so you get that. But now and then somebody will call and they start down a path, and you try to let them talk for a little while, because you want your pro-gun people to see how others are thinking. There's that. But if they start to get into the realm of ridiculous, or they start to get into the realm of untruth, I have a button and they go away. It's pretty magical. So.
Nice. Great. Well, and so is there, I know you said you cover a whole bunch of things, but is there a common theme that comes up a lot that you find yourself addressing often?
Well, the interesting thing, one of the most commonly misunderstood statements is where the news says that someone was operating a firearm under a disability. The majority of the population thinks that that means that somebody is on disability, or someone is a disabled person, or someone is a handicapped person, and they're telling them that they can't have a gun. When in actuality, it is the legal term of disability, which means that the law has concluded, the law has disabled that person from being allowed to legally own a handgun, i.e. they're a felon, or they're drunk, or they're on drugs, things that society has said, these are the rules that you cannot have a gun if you are any of this checklist of offenses.
Okay.
But I bet I get asked that once a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Great. And so the radio show kind of started, and then you went to Realize, and you said that's really about training. Well, really just getting that knowledge out for the layman.
Yeah. So we continue to try education under Realize, and so Realize become the umbrella that absorbed the radio. It is now of the 501c3 not-for-profit, but we also do an event called the Preppers Ball, where we have acres and raffles, and we do some fundraising. We do an appraisal fair. That's what's coming up in the next couple of months. We get 5 to 7 that all show up at the local VFW hall, and we do free firearms appraisals for anybody who brings a firearm to the event.
Oh wow!
So if somebody's got, they want to know what it's worth. They want to know how to use it. They want to know if they inherited it, if they, want to know the history, or if they're curious about it. The beauty of having a gun shops is that everybody's got their own area of expertise. In our case, we've got somebody that's a cowboy gun kind of person, and that's their strength. We've got somebody else that's military uniforms and knives, somebody else that is the more current police-issued firearm stuff, a couple of the generalists, and then we've got one historian. And so anything that walks in the door, somebody's got an area of expertise enough to really be able to help them.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a really fun event, like Antique Roadshow, but for firearms.
For firearms. And
yeah.
We've had some stuff come in that are so unique and so different that we had we've had a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 Colt, so the true cowboy guns, come through. We had a Winchester Thumb Trigger 22. So this is a gun that does not have a trigger nor a trigger guard. The whole underside of the underbelly of the gun is smooth and sleek like the belly of a fish.
Oh.
And the trigger is actually part of, like if you've got one of the Crickets or one of those guns or the Henry AccuTrigger or AccuBolt, where you cycle the bolt and then you pull back to cock it. It has that, and then it has a little lever that you hit with your thumb, and so it minimizes movement completely. And it was designed to be a varmint gun, and they're very, very rare. And so one of those came through, and people were like, they'd never even seen one before. We had a gun that came in that used, as the powder, if you will, used fulminated mercury. So it's like a pill bottle that tips over, and then the hammer strikes into this pot of mercury to make the gun go off. Just really, really unique and different things that have come through the door. And then we've had people who said, I've got this shotgun, how does it work? Or I've got this. One lady came in with a 410-22 double-barreled gun that it was her dad's chicken coop gun. So it's great to hear the stories.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And you guys do I was reading online fashion shows as well for concealed carry.
Well, yeah, if you aim as the fashion show concealed, to the point where we put together a concealed fashion show, and then we put together another one, and we put together a third one, and people kept asking, how do you do it? What do you do? What do you consider? So we sat down and wrote, we figured it'd be like a 20-page manual to how to put together the considerations for how to put together a concealed carry fashion show. What to consider, how to do it, all that. When we got to saying, oh, they need to know this, it's 150.
Wow.
So in effect, I have written the book on how to produce a concealed carry fashion show with the intent that you can use the book as a guide for trying to do a fundraiser, do a fashion show.
Huh. That's really amazing.
Who have and are working their way through fashion shows. And so then they call me and they're like, okay, you said this, I want to know this. Can you help me with this? And it's fascinating.
That's great. And yeah, and it seems really important because it's always, as a guy, I go take firearms training and, my male instructors will always say it's easy, just wear clothes a size bigger. You have to dress to hide the firearm. But for women, it's got to be a lot different. You guys have a lot of different kinds of clothes. So.
We've got a lot of different kinds of clothes. Well, and one of the big things is women wear our clothes tighter. And frankly, here's a newsflash. We have curves. Okay?
Yeah.
So those curves, the ones that make you so, kind of unique and individual, those curves make your gun stick in or stick out. So where you guys put your gun in your pants and you're pretty much straight up and down, the gun is pretty much straight up and down. But when you take that gun and think about the fact that it's at an angle because I'm at an angle. So it's digging into my rib cage. It's sticking out the side of my pants. It's wedged into my gizzard, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So those things, depending on how each woman is built, makes a decision as to how to carry them. And another interesting point is we did the first fashion shows for women. And the guys were like, shut up. And we actually changed it to where we've had much more success doing a unisex fashion show where we've got both guys and girls. And it's great fun. If you Google it, last year I was the consultant to the NRA Carry Guard when they did their fashion show in Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
So it's cool enough and unique enough about what we did that the NRA said, well, I guess so come on up and help us. And their fashion show was such a success that it is now one of the gems built into the Carry on an annual basis, and they're using it as one of the galas. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's really cool. Wow. Cool. And so, you have so much going on. I want to make sure we talk about everything. You have the 10th anniversary of the Heller decision coming up, and you're speaking there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so think about it. Most of us, if you're in the Second Amendment world at all, you know who Dick Heller is, and you know what Heller versus DC was about. It was about the fact that Dick Heller was a security guard who wanted to have his gun at home, and the DC law said he wasn't allowed. He was allowed to keep his gun at work, so he had to leave it at work. So think about that. Here's your gun. Just leave it at work, right?
Yep.
And so it took him years and years and backing of people with deep pockets because to get the decision, to get to the point where someone was listening to it that mattered, that made a final decision, it was millions of dollars to get to the Heller decision at the Supreme Court level.
Oh, wow.
It was like $1.4 million or $1.2 million, something like that was the legal expenses. So luckily for him, there was some backing where people stepped in and said, I'll help you. But what they'd done was they passed the legislation that said that in order to have a gun at your house, you had to register it. That was the first part of the legislation. The second part of the legislation said, we will not take any registration for handguns. Okay? So he was truly in a catch-22, and that's what the Supreme Court ruled upon. So it was like, and I'm not clear, I think it was 12, 13 years that it was working its way through the court. Something of that ilk, something pretty tremendous.
Yeah.
But the final decision was made on June 26th of 2008. So 10 years ago, coming up in like a couple weeks. So June 26th, 10 years ago. So I got a call just recently that said that they are not only having an evening gala event to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Heller decision. They've got a website called heller10.com. But they're going to have a series of speakers speak on the steps of the Supreme Court, doing a rally and talking about the Heller decision. And they asked if I would speak. You could have knocked me over with a feather. Because then it's like, okay, do you want to come to D.C. and speak at the 10th anniversary? And I'm like, would I? Yeah. Try, now that you've dangled this in front of me, try to keep me away. It is to me it's probably one of the biggest compliments of my entire life, is to be able to be included in this crowd of speakers. I mean, they're rock star speakers, and so it is awesome.
Great. So what started all of this for you? I mean, I read that you're an engineer by training. What inspired you to start training other people?
Well, it's one of those crazy life changes that you never, where you're kind of, you got a plan and you're heading down this path and you know exactly where you're going, and all of a sudden you get into a spin and you're heading in a different direction. Like, hey, what just happened? So that's sort of where I am, because I was raised in a very pro-gun household. My grandfather shot trap on the circuit from Ohio to Florida, and so he was always, I mean, my earliest memory was getting to pull the handle and loading 12-gauge shotgun shells, or going to Vandalia with him with a pillowcase where I had to pick up not only empty shotgun shell casing, but I'm of an age where they didn't have plastic wads yet for sale. So the only way you could get them was to buy factory ammunition and then pick them up. And my grandfather's theory was, you're shorter than me, so you pick them up. And then we would take them home. We would wash them in Grandma's wash machine, and then we would sort them out by color, and then we would reload.
Huh.
So that was my grandfather. My father was a gun crafter. So then I met and married my husband, who's he's a car guy. Oh. So I got my degree, got married, we built a house. I was working in industry, and one day the company that I worked for somewhat, and I found myself without a job. And so I was sitting there going, okay, what am I going to do now? And you can either just get back on the treadmill, or you can stop your life and say, what do I want to do? Conversation, and he said, if I got to do whatever I was in you're at, he says, I would open a firearms training school and teach people how to shoot, because Ohio's going to pass their concealed carry. Huh. And I'm like, there's money in that. No, I think there is. And I'm like, no, there's no money in that. So I sat down and wrote a business plan to prove wrong. That was my whole goal, prove him wrong. Next thing I know, I'm in freaking business with him because he wasn't wrong. And that was the day that my life just took a completely different direction. Up to that point, I was training people, but I was training people in sales and in manufacturing, trying to figure out how people learned and all that. And I applied that stuff to firearms training, breaking it down in the same way. How do people learn? How do you teach shouldn't be how you teach. It should be how you teach how they learn. And that's kind of been the life's mission since, somewhere around 2003.
All right. Wow. Cool.
It's a crazy story. It just happens.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people say that they're accidents, and I believe them. It wasn't because it was a plan.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people say they want to do firearms training, but there's no money in it. But you found a way.
You found a way. I mean, and there's not a ton of money, and one of the things that happens is that one of the things is a major influx, and so there's money in it. But over time, then people who then start to just lowball it and lowball it and lowball it, and so there gets to be less and less money in it, unless you get a niche where you show value for life. Because if you want to be a commodity trainer, you train the same way everybody else trains, for the same features everybody else trains, you'll add value, and you have to offer value. And you have to figure out what makes you unique, and what can you offer that you want to.
Great. And so, Amanda, I've been asking everyone that comes on the show, and I keep saying I'm going to warn them first, but are there any books that you recommend for firearms owners, Second Amendment supporters that everyone should read?
Well, I'm a big one for, I read and reread and reread books. So it makes my husband insane, is I'll pick up a book, open it to the middle, and start reading. So I just do, because it's like, this is a good part of the story, But one of the newest books that came out is the USCCA. Beth Alcazar is the author, and it's about women and guns. And I can't tell you exactly what the name is.
Okay. All right.
It's put out by USCCA. It is a fabulous book, and it is made in little compartments. It's perfect like that. You can read a little bit, and it's wonderful for the reader. There's that. And then the other book that I would suggest is that, do you know who Yehuda Reamer is?
No.
Okay, Yehuda Reamer is a guy that lives in Texas that is writing a line of children's books. So he's writing gun safety books. He's got a coloring book. He's got one of them is called Safety On, and then one of them is ABCs of Firearms. So you can teach your kids the letters by teaching them the correct terms of.
Oh, okay.
So they're really great pro firearms. Yet and it's not in your face. It's just a part of yours and your kid's life. I love them. So there, I'll tell you, a book for women and a book for women or a book for men to understand women and the features that they have to face, and then a book for kids.
All right, great. And if people want to find you online, what's the best place for them to go?
Well, the easiest is to the radio show. It's called like EYE, onthetargetradio.com. And then if you go there, that should link to everything else. Or you can go to Realize. It's Realize FAC for Firearms Awareness Coalition, realizefac.com. And either one of those. Or you can just Google my name and stuff comes up and everything's linked to something that's linked to something that you find. I'm pretty out there, so people can get to my personal email. They can reach out. To help and to educate and to be available.
Great. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Please head over to the show notes page, Out of Order James Kalita /Amanda, for links to the books, events, and organizations that Amanda and I talked about today. Please accept my apologies for the audio issues. I am slowly learning, with the emphasis on slowly, how to properly use all of this recording equipment. So, thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.